This week, I tackle sentient thongs, molting snake butts, and bikini fishing.
And I try to explain why it's still worth watching. Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett, and we watch anime.
Yeah, so let's talk about this week.
You have made me feel incredibly dirty about myself.
This is a really fun episode, but I just want to get like your initial how do you feel? How you're feeling? Tell the doll where it touched you. Like give us like a full response.
Where it touched me is a key comment. I'll stop bumping my desk there. It's like an earth.
It was from all the fan service. I get it.
Right, all the fan service, which you'll get into shortly.
Yes.
But so last week on our inaugural episode, we tackled Cowboy Bebop, one of the most classic animes. And this week, Kyle wanted to go in a completely different direction, and he sent me on the path of fan service, which, as he'll explain shortly, is really, really interesting stuff. And we picked 4 different episodes of 4 different series that all offer, again, this fan service that Kyle will discuss, but in very different ways. But in one way, they are all the same, and that is a gratuitous amount of breast flesh. Yeah. And so... all shiny,
all somehow...
glistening, I dare say glistening.
Yes, and they also somehow blush like the cheeks, so they have blushing boobs at the same time as their cheeks. It's always fascinating.
And like I just laughed now, they're like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, and incredible physics. So, yeah, so the reason why I decided to jump into this topic after we had just done... So I went from like an episode of pure legitimacy to like the hardest conversation to have to new fans about the medium. Because when you
True story.
Yeah.
If my parents came in the room, I would switch the screen to porn.
Yes. It'd be easier to explain than what I made you watch. And
yeah.
To your credit, Garrett, I made you watch some weird stuff. So basically the idea of why I decided to do this is because as an anime fan, when you talk about it with someone or you say, hey, I like this thing, some people will say, oh, is that cartoons? And then you can go into why it's not just cartoons. Oh, isn't that just like a Japanese thing? You can understand why it's a Japanese thing. Where it gets hard to explain is people go, isn't that porn? And you have to explain to people that anime in itself is a medium that happens to have of varying levels of what's known as fan service. And fan service in itself is when you take characters that people glom themselves onto. They're all beautiful, they're all busty, they all have great curves and bodies and all that stuff. And you put them in situations in which they get into over-sexualized ways. So essentially it is like, you know, like in one of the episodes that we tackle, Fairy Tail, all of these characters actually like don't wear this stuff most of the time. They're wearing armor or gear and they're like fighters and stuff like that. But then they take a break for a day and they're all just, their clothes are flying off their bodies, the willy-nilly. So,
well, and I was going to ask you that because in particular with that episode, I was like, this feels like an outlier. This is like the episode where everyone's on vacation for the week, or the beach house episode. And
yes,
so...
every anime fan knows full well that every series has to have the quote-unquote beach episode, right? Where like the story's not happening. We're just, everybody's in bikinis and bathing suits and we're having the beach episode. It's just a quintessential part of reading anything. You're just like, we could be talking about murdering people, but as long as the beach episode's in the middle, then you can go back to murdering people after like an episode or two. It is like
noted.
That's why I felt like it was important. So let's start with our first scene. And for those watching out there, this is probably the one that most people have actually watched. It's probably the more popular, I would say, of the popular anime or manga in the United States. Like you get the big 3 of Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Bleach, One Piece, and then like a 1A would be Fairy Tail. A lot of people like this one because it looks like One Piece. It has like a style like One Piece does, and so Hiro Mashima is very close to Eiichiro Oda, who writes One Piece, and they kind of all model themselves in the same style. So it has that feel, but it's different. So, but what we're going to do in this episode is, Garrett, I'm going to tell you, the noob, to give us a synopsis on what you watched, and I'm going to want you to explain episode 5, the OVA 5. So this is an original video anime. The episode is entitled "The Exciting Ryuzetsu Land." So what happened, Garrett? What happened in this scene?
So from the very start, I felt like this was like an outlier episode.
Right.
In everything you gave me, because you didn't give me Series 1, Episode 1 of any of the shows.
Correct.
So I sort of hopped right in. So I knew for a fair amount I was going to know nothing as to what was going on. But this one, there seemed to be no discernible plot of any fashion. There's a lot of inside jokes for people who probably watch the show on the regular. But as best I could describe it, it would be a bikini competition at a Great Wolf Lodge. Because they're at an indoor water park, all these different characters, everyone is ripped for one reason or another. So obviously there's some sort of like superhero in their own thing. Right. There was a lot about magical bikinis or legendary bikinis. It also introduced something that Kyle made me aware of several years ago in anime, which was the nosebleed. And if you're not familiar with what a nosebleed symbolizes in anime, it's an erection.
Yeah.
And if you see a character who has a nosebleed, I think in this episode, one of the female characters said, "I'm going to make you fill the pool with blood." And I was like, oh, damn. Like, that's dirty, girl. That's dirty.
I know. And you get like it's implied, but at the same time, you're like, I don't know how to take that.
So I also picked up there's a lot of like, oh, you're from this guild or you're from this mage. So I sort of got the idea that there was a lot of characters that they're all like they're either wizards or they're warriors with magical powers or something, and they're constantly battling one another. But this is vacation day, as Kyle stated. This is the beach episode, so everyone's going to get along with minimal interference with one another, just in the name of giving the fans at home a nosebleed.
Yes.
So that's
ones that'll fill the pool.
That's about all I picked up on the plot. There was also at some point
talk about the water slide. I want you to talk about the water slide because I think they
how does the water slide get out of control? So there is a water slide, and they preface it at the beginning of the episode. One of the female characters says to another male character, she says, "Do you want to go down the water slide? You're supposed to hug your paramour as you go down." And I'm like, that's weird and sounds like a health violation, like someone could seriously get injured. You should never do water, like, flume activities where you're actually touching another
in a joint session, yes.
Right. So the culmination of the episode is this ride goes wild. But I still don't understand it because people were like standing on the concrete looking up at it and they're like, "Oh no!" And all of a sudden they're flying down the flume. And I have no idea why. And everyone who held each other had like a visceral, emotional, and physical reaction to one another. Like these two guys were like, "Oh no, don't do it, no!" And next thing you know, they're flying down in this like intertwined boy love moment. And I had no clue what was happening. I was moderately entertained. No clue what was happening.
Right, and I think this one, like, it's so far ahead in the series that, like, there's just so much you have to know beforehand before I get anything. So I had zero thought. But, like, even with the stuff they did say, it didn't matter. So
right. I tried really hard, and I'm like, they're saying, or speaking, well, I listen, again, 3 out of the 4 of these episodes today, I did sub. The only one I did dub was because the source for it was dub only. But that being said, I was grasping desperately at the words that they were saying, and I was like, nope, none of this registers a point or a direction.
So if you were to summarize what you thought Fairy Tail was in one sentence, what do you think the show's about?
I think it's about these individual guilds of people who possess magic, because I said mage a lot. People who possess magic. They all seem pretty young, so maybe they're kind of school age and they're competing, like different wizarding schools, a little Harry Potter-esque. I don't know, but it just sort of seemed like maybe these roving groups of mages that have their own quirky personalities and relationships with one another, and this was a way to blend them all. Maybe each episode focuses on a different guild, or goes back and forth, and this one kind of brought them together, maybe?
Right.
Am I wrong, right? I don't know.
So yeah, you're actually quite close, and I just love it because I can just hear the anime fans going like, ooh, just like a little off. He's like a little tweak there. Yeah, but you're actually fairly close. So Fairy Tale is the titular name of the mage guild that is the namesake of the show, and most of the characters that you see in that episode are from Fairy Tale. So Fairy Tale in itself, and in this world, unlike Harry Potter, they're not really at a school. They work at guilds, and guilds take on missions, and the missions are what drive the story. Okay. And in this case, in this episode, it was like season 5 or 6, and what happened in this guild is that they had an Avengers-style thing where they had a tournament on an island. A big dragon destroyed that island, but one person casted a spell where they all kind of like Avengers flashed into time, and they all appeared 7 years later and came back, and their guild was no longer the most powerful one. They were kind of the weak guild because all their best ones got destroyed in this island. They came back, and now they're fighting in this grand games to get back their title as the best guild in this show. So that just gives you a little context. I know that the episode doesn't do anything, but what Fairy Tale does more than anything is it loves to push the shipping. And what shipping means is they like to take two characters and they want you to really want those two to get together. And
everyone was paired off.
Right.
Whether it was like two females, two males, this couple, that couple, everyone was paired off.
Right, and in this episode, they really wanted to be clear who was with who, because I think before then, you get Gajeel, who was the big black spiky-haired guy, and
he's the one who looks like a rock, the Rock.
And Levy, who's the female. They're supposed to be a couple, and then you got the best one everybody loves is Gray and Juvia, Uvia. Is how you're really supposed to say her name, and she loves him, but he's like you'll find out what a Sundare's Zumbi's like. He's like, oh, I don't really like you that much, but like I'll keep you at my hip pocket kind of thing. But she's like, I love you, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that.
Who is the female with the legendary bathing suit?
That is many people's waifu. That's Urza, Erza. Urza. They call it the Titania. Her power is that she magically changes her outfit to fit the battle, but she's like considered one of the strongest mages. So Erza, which I know you're going to learn these terms. So like I'm going to actually write in the post waifu.
What's a waifu?
Waifu? A waifu is what an anime fan will call their female character because it's the kind of Japanese pronunciation of the word wife. So it's
wifey, like
my wifey, yeah, but it's like a Japanese way of saying waifu. And and so Erza is like the strong, like powerful one, but she's also got an amazing racket, and her power is to like change her clothes in like whatever fashion to fight. Gotcha. So I think with her legendary bikini was part of her power because like she'll change to a samurai sometimes. Most of the time she's dressed in knight armor. Other times, so like that is, so that's kind of in keeping with her character. But knowing that it rips is kind of and getting her nude is kind of the key point, and there's a lot of nudity. So as we kind of close up on this episode, because we've got to move on to the other ones.
Right.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this in terms of gratuitousness?
Oh, 5.5 or 6.
5.5. I would give it 2.
It was like
no sex.
Throw on any mainstream television show, especially one from like the years of 1999 to like 2010 when we were all a little less woke, and everyone's in a bikini, and the close-up shots are of the side boob and the under boob, and it was, it was just an animated.
It was of the boob.
Yeah, it was an animated version of Baywatch, I guess.
Yeah.
Like at least this one particular episode, I know that doesn't speak to the broader topic of Fairy Tale.
Right. So, and I guess the very quick question is, would you watch Fairy Tale knowing what you now know about the episode? Yes or no? This could be a simple, like, yes. Like, are you feeling it?
I wouldn't seek it out.
Right. Okay.
I would, I could tell you it was my third favorite.
Okay.
Of the things that you handed out to me. Yeah.
All right. Now, this next one we have to be very careful of because it has a very strong fandom. Kill La Kill. Which I don't know how you're going to explain this episode because I gave you the most gratuitous fan servicey episode. Episode 15 of Kill La Kill, the first season. There was only really one total season. But so for those out there, what was this episode about?
This episode can be summarized with one statement, and that's butt-naked dudes mech warrior suits. At one point, they were loading men from, like, cannons into what looked like mechanical velociraptor legs and firing them across the countryside. So here's sort of what it felt like Kill La Kill was. Apparently there was human and non-human, but everyone takes on the appearance of being human. But it appears that costumes or outfits or uniforms possess powers. So it's less about the person, like of course, you can have the will inside of the costume, but the actual power you get is from the outfit that you're wearing. And it was sort of interesting when the episode started, the first people in costumes were in white. And I immediately thought they were the good guys because you associate white with good, and they were actually not the good guys. And the bad guys were in black and red. But I sort of got the vibe that there are certain people who are powerful. By the way, this is all happening in bombed-out Osaka, Japan.
Yes.
There are certain people who are more powerful than others, and they wear these body armor-type suits. Some of them are very mechanical-looking, but many of them are just like very highly stylized. Like think of like almost like a revolutionary soldier's jacket, but with just like nipple pasties and a thong underneath it, which somehow acts like an incredible shield, an incredible weapon.
Right.
So what I picked up from it was there's this, was it Lady Satsuki?
Yeah. She's the head. She's like the head disciplinary action. I don't want to give you too much away, but I want you to,
Gotcha. Well, yes. Well, that's
Satsuki Kyurien. Yeah.
So at some point it is revealed that it's almost like there's schools battling one another.
Okay.
So like they're students. But I wrote a few notes. I wrote down were the power of clothing.
Right.
There was also a moment where a mech warrior crab got poked up the crab butt while the poker screamed "skeet, skeet, skeet." This was the one that was, if I'm not mistaken, dubbed over, even though I would have preferred not to have it dubbed. So that was really interesting to have like the direct Japanese translation across the bottom, and the characters not necessarily matching that up word for word. Right. I also noted that there was a character named Matoi who looked like Rufio. If anyone knows Hook from 93 or 1994.
Oh, it's crazy that's your comparison. She's a female Rufio, and she sings Bangarang with her one arm scissor.
Right. Also, they did this thing when they changed out of their normal clothes and they put the suits on. It sort of, they turned into like a less detailed body form, but very naked, and there was like wind would swirl around them, and all of their go.
Yes, they would have the wind blow from the bottom of their boobs was so violent that their body was still, but their breasts would just be, and their face always looked calm, like they were sleeping. They were just like, ah. It's like, so. In one sentence, what is Kill La Kill about?
In one sentence, what is Kill La Kill about?
Yes, from what you took from this episode.
Kill La Kill is about warring schools who utilize the power of bodysuits to fight one another.
That's honestly, Garrett, for someone who just watched episode 15, didn't do that bad. So some corrections out there. So there's all one school. And
Oh,
the folks in white are kind of the disciplinary committee, which means that, like, in many of these schools, I can't speak for the country of Japan, but for a lot of the anime that presented in high school is that there's usually like a group of students who are like the best students who are there to kind of like keep order with the other students. And that is the kind of...
it's like a prefect.
Yeah, it's like they're like a bunch of... Yeah, they're like the enforcers of the school, but they're actually like the best students, and they're given...
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like the student council. And Satsuki Kyryujin is the one in white, and she the way that they give their kind of rule over the school is with these things called Goku uniforms, which do have special powers and crazy abilities that come with their clothes. And then the Rufio character, Ryuko Matoi, she is there to find out who killed her father in that school, and her blade, the one scissor, is able to cut Goku uniforms. So it's like her battle against it. So she fights the bad guys by stripping them. Yeah. By stripping the other characters naked. One thing to note is that the clothes are called Life Battle Fibers. And that's because... Life
Fibers, that's right.
Yes, and not to spoil it, because I don't know if you're going to watch Kill La Kill. What you find out is that clothes are actually sentient beings that have a symbiotic relationship with humans.
Okay.
And the story goes is that humans were given abilities, powers, and intelligence by clothes, and in return we wear them, and they use our power, our life energy to keep... Yeah, so it's like Venom. Like this shirt right now is Venom. And
okay. All right. I love that I'm like skeptical of every word coming out of your mouth, and you're like, it's like Venom, and I'm like, oh, naturally.
Yeah, that's what gives it away, right? I think for me, what I like about Kill La Kill is it is very stylized. So save for all like the weird clothing stuff, I love the jagged writing. I like when people get into battles, they get very distorted in their view, and like the action's very cool. Like I picked this episode because I wanted to see a confrontation between the lead almost new chick and the bad almost new chick, and just to see the two of them fight. I forgot that like there were guys with pink glowing nipples and like naked mechs, and then like and then when she joins this like opposing force disciplinary commission, they're called like the nudist committee or whatever. So like they're opposing clothes because they're
nudist beach.
The nudist beach, yeah, and they're there to stop the oppression of clothes, and it's so like all that aside, I appreciate it for what the stylization is. I appreciate the. It's weird to push aside glowing pink nipples.
No, but it all makes it's in its absurdity. It's starting to make more sense because I'm like, why are they called nudist beach? That's so stupid. But now that I realize that they're rallying against the oppression of clothes, you don't have to be worn clothes. I'm like, well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, right. And it makes it in its own logic. It works. And if at anything, it's a good battle anime. So like, I like anime in which there's a tournament and people are fighting each other. If you like that style, that's the general gist of what you're going to get here. It doesn't advance the plot too much. You also find out, Matoi's relationship with Satsuki, Queen Satsuki, and they have a very good relationship, and then they find out a central person that's the central villain, and they work together. So it's a really, for the art, the style, I enjoyed it, but like as I said, I don't understand. But the problem that I want to stress this very much to you, Garrett. There is a huge fandom that will knock you out if you make fun of Kill La Kill, man. They love this. Yeah. They love Matoi.
When was Kill La Kill? Is Kill La Kill still active? Is it still on?
It's a Netflix thing, but it came out in 2014. But the fandom's still pretty strong on it. And they try to.
But there hasn't been like new episodes recently, or
no. It's a one and done. So I think I appreciate it because it was also one and done. It wasn't like Fairy Tail, which now was like on season like 15 by the time it was done, and One Piece, which is still going. Like this is like you learn the story and it's over. So I appreciate that, but like I think this is one of those key battle points where people are like, you can appreciate the style, you appreciate how it creates like a weird narrative, but it makes it work. And the Matoi character, albeit is getting naked a lot, is still like a really badass character,
right? And
also you want to be her to be your waifu,
right?
It's still like I can see why people like will defend it, even though it has some lewd aspects to it. So,
well, I still found it to be fairly mild. I mean, so for example, like you're watching two women go into battle. Clearly, when you're watching an attack move, the appropriate angle is the panty shot.
right.
Like naturally,
when I'm coming to punch someone, I automatically assume they're looking at my taint, and I just have to block it.
No!
Like, watch the tape, no! And so let's give it a question on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you give this in terms of gratuitousness?
In terms of like the fan service and the sexuality, maybe a 6. Again, I my senses were not overloaded.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty standard. You know, we know our audience.
right.
We know what we need to throw in there. And also, whereas with Fairy Tale, where it was a one-off episode,
Yeah,
what I got in Kill La Kill, I feel like I'd be getting a lot
right.
in Kill La Kill.
Right.
You know, every episode, whether it's 10, 20, 30 episodes, whatever it is.
Yeah. And so both of those are kind of in the action-adventure genre.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go into a completely new genre. But before that, would you watch Kill La Kill with what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely would.
Cool.
I would absolutely watch Kill La Kill. I would add it to my Netflix list next time I'm logged in and put it on my watch list for sure.
Awesome, cool. And I know there's some fans that would agree with you. So the third one, now we go from the action battle genre to a completely different genre that is going to be news to you, and it's going to require a lot of explanation. But we're going to talk about level 3 on the fan service scale, Monster Musume, or Everyday Life with the Monster Girls. I had you watch episode 6, which was regarding how the lead character was helping out his being a good host, I think. Garrett, explain what happened in this episode.
At minute 7 and 2 seconds, I wrote the words, "I feel so dirty." This was written by perverts for perverts.
I don't disagree with you. So what happened in this episode, Garrett?
So it appears to me that there is a lead male character who has somehow found himself living in a home with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
By the time of this episode 5, it keeps getting bigger throughout the course.
5 very large-breasted women who also happen to be monsters of some sort.
They have to be.
The primary female, I would argue, is half snake, half woman.
Right.
There's a centaurian woman. There's a bird woman.
Right.
There's what looks like a flubber woman who's covered in green goo. Okay. What am I missing from this episode?
The harpy, you found out, the lamia, the centaur, the slime, and then there should be a mermaid by that point. I'm not sure.
Yes, there was a girl who swims.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so the episode open scene.
Right.
The episode opens up with Snake Monster Girl cooking dinner for the man of the house. And she's apparently a terrible cook, and she's distracted. And the reason that she's distracted is because we find out she's molting. Her skin is coming off, much like a snake's skin would come off. The host discovers this, and in what Kyle would describe as a act of being a good host, what I would describe as creepy and terrifying and sexual all at the same time, he decides he needs to help her molt because she's too embarrassed to do it on her own. So we spend 5 minutes watching this man peel the skin off of a snake female monster as she orgasms into the night. And I think that was right about minute 7 when I said, I feel so incredibly dirty. And as if it couldn't get any worse, there's a knock at the door.
Right.
And
Who could it be?
Why, it's your friendly neighborhood random videographer who says he's there for hold on, I wrote it down. I thought it was fantastic. Oh goodness.
He's there to document the.
He's there to document. I think at one point the words came out of his mouth, "Take off her panties. It's for mutual understanding." And I was like, so this videographer shows up, and he's very much a creeper. And so apparently these monsters must be unique to Earth. It sounds like they're on some sort of species exchange program.
Okay.
So they're also, they don't know the culture super well. They're not totally naive, but they're willing to open themselves up for interviews and all this stuff because they're on this exchange program, and they know that a big part of that is knowledge and learning about one another.
Of course.
And so this videographer asked to interview every girl, including the harpy, who is going to give birth to an egg. And he proceeds.
Which is good gloss over. Yeah. She's laying an egg that month. So
right. So he proceeds to ask them all to see their rooms to get a little bit better idea of how they're living. And he gets into the room. He asks the first question, and inevitably he goes, "Yeah. Can I see your panties?" And they're like, "No! How could you ask such a thing?" And it was something, man.
And did you watch the birth scene too? That was good.
Yes, I watched the birth scene.
Garrett, it's important for Monster Exchange that you watch the harpy moan her way through laying an egg. How are you not going to understand anime?
I know! And essentially the man of the house has to give her a reach around to, like, pull the eggshell out of her.
And there's also implied that he may have touched the snake when she was taking off her skin, because a snake walks through, like, a store, and, like, he brushes against the ceiling and goes, "Hello!"
That was one of the best things about this episode, was like the symbolism when he's trying to, like, rewind 5 minutes, when he's trying to pull the skin off of the snake, and he accidentally puts his hand somewhere it shouldn't be, and the cut scene is a lizard putting a golf ball into a hole,
and then, like, it brushes against the roof and, like, "Hello!" There's heavy implications. So
it was wild, man. It was wild.
Absorbed a lot, and I appreciate you taking the effort to learn a little bit about this genre.
Well, I mean, so to be fair, it was for mutual understanding and friendship.
It's for your friendship with me and mutual understanding of how much of a perv I am for ever watching this show. So, question: one sentence summary. What would you say Monster Musume Everyday Life Girls with Everyday Life with Monster Girls is all about?
Brothel full of monsters, never-ending adventure and orgasms.
Okay, so so you actually hit a lot of good points on there. So the show Everyday Life with Monster Girls is about a character named Kimihito Kurusu who was forced by the exchange program because they're running out of houses. House monster girls in this exchange program to get them to live in the human world. And he's only the one guy in the house, and he's there to house them and keep them in line, and, like, the misadventures of that. And honestly, what you need to know about
doing a terrible job. He's doing a very terrible job.
And I think a reason why I picked this anime above the ridiculousness of the fan service is to explain this genre, which is called the harem manga. And harem, as you know, is with one man who has a large amount of women who are, like, on his beck and call. And that is very much the theory around this stuff. A lot of people don't like harem mangas, and a lot of people enjoy them because they have, like, different characters that are, like, fighting for the affection of one guy. And there's a lot to problematize about that. But I think when it comes to monsters, and, like, this has, like, a very concept that, like, you know, whatever. And so what you learn is that he first gets Mila the snake, which she's actually a lamia, which is a snake creature. He takes on Santorea, who is the centaur. Sue, which is the slime, so she's a slime. Poppy, which is the name of the of the harpy, and the ways in which he has to deal with their varying biologies and things that they do. Like at some point, like the centaur goes into heat, and Lamias like also have like an orgy at some point that they invite men to, and they just have massive orgies because they have to propagate their species because they're only female. And so there's like a lot of that stuff that happens in this show.
Right.
Very dirty.
Right.
Very much, as you said, for pervs by pervs. But
well, and I want to ask you, when did this come out? It looked fairly recent. The animation was pretty crisp.
The anime was pretty crisp, but I think it's actually one of the newer ones. It's in 2014, much like Kill La Kill.
Okay.
And
the reason why I ask is because there's a lot of things that, for lack of a better way of putting it, you used to be able to get away with that you can't get away with now in American media. I mean, you could certainly do it,
right,
and you're not going to go to jail,
right,
but you're going to catch holy hell for it, and you have to deal with the blowback and if it's worth it. And I definitely think harem stylized anime is something that would run into a lot of interference if you made a show like that here. So I know that obviously culture's a lot different over there. I don't know how, it certainly didn't seem woke, but I also understand how you say that with this particular show, you can kind of explain it away because they're monsters.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way, oh God, this is going to sound terrible, it dehumanizes the situation, but I don't know.
Right. And I think the one thing about harem manga is that it's actually got a long history of different shows that represent this, from like Tenchi Muyo, which was on Adult Swim before, to, you know, and so a lot of ones that are more romance based. This one's kind of more on the category of ecchi. So just kind of give you an idea, ecchi is means that it's more sexualized. It's like it's more explicit with its sexuality, but doesn't actually go into porn territory. Like the range goes, it goes like
it's knocking on the door, man.
Right. It's fan service, ecchi, hentai, which is actual porn. So ecchi is like right in between those two factors. And I think for me, I feel like harem mangas have a shelf life to me because there's only so much I can feel vicariously. You're a guy living through this like fantasy of women trying to like you, and then you introduce a new girl. And then a new girl, and a new girl, and really you're just like, just get, because we all know we want you to get with like the first 2 or 3. So just get there, stop adding more, because eventually we get a headless ghost, we get a Spider Woman, we get.
Wait, Spider Woman is a villain though, right? Because she makes it.
At one point, but not anymore. There is a bee creature. There is a one-eyed cyclops. There is a one-horned creature. It gets very overwhelming very quickly, and you're just like, okay.
Weird thing about the one-eyed cyclops, she actually has 2 vaginas. So.
And then the snake comes out.
For those watching, I have no idea if that's true or false. I just imagine that something has to come in pairs.
Right. So, for Monster Musume, everyday life with monster girls, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you give it in terms of its gratuity factor?
Well, I mean, if hentai is where 11 is, right?
Right.
Then this is certainly a strong 9. A very, very
I was hoping 3 would be a little bit below, but I guess it's in the gratuity mark. So would you, yes or no, would you watch?
Well, the issue is like the visuals, they try with those little asides, they try and keep it quirky and fun. But, I mean, a third of the episode was, like, moaning and gyration. So I think that...
There has to be an industry that's, like, makes billions of dollars of just Japanese women that are able to go...
Right. And can you imagine, I thought the entire time, if you are the voice actress, and you go into the studio and you cut your moan, and some dude comes over the loudspeaker and he's like, I really wasn't feeling the orgasm that time, so if you could run those vocals again. Like...
I also feel really weird because for some reason, no matter how much they claim that the woman is either receiving pleasure or liking what she's doing, they always have to seem as if they are not permitted. There's no consent in anything that's being done. It's always like a
Mhm.
baka baka baka, yeah, yeah, like a lot of that, and it's tough to get into something like that when that is the central, like, here in the United States culturally we don't necessarily dig that as a general factor, but like there they really lean into it. Like, don't do it, don't do it, like that kind of stuff. And I'm
Furthermore, thank you for now the image when I go to bed tonight. I'll see, like, the last thing I'll see in my eyelids is Cal going, baka, baka, baka.
Trust me, that won't be the last. That was the first, but it won't be the last.
I think we were rating it. I don't know.
You gave it a 9. Would you watch
Musume
knowing what you've seen from the fan service?
Yeah, I might give it a couple episodes just to see with the character development.
Just to see, but for cultural understanding, right? That's
and mutual friendship.
And mutual friendship. All right, so now we're going into level 4, the ultimate in fan service craziness that I made you watch, which comes from an episode of the 2nd season, also of Sora no Toshimono, which means Heaven's Lost Property. And this is, I believe, episode 9 of this episode. So, Garrett, this is what happened in Heaven's Lost Property.
So, Heaven's Lost Property. No idea what that title has to do anything with the show that I watched. The animation was really interesting. The scale of the characters kept changing. At some point, they were like small, almost like children. And then at other times they're like teenagers, and then other times they're like adults. It also introduced me to this other thing that apparently when you feel embarrassment or arousal, I never noticed this in my wife or in anyone in my life, but apparently your eyes disappear and they're replaced by like shutter shade lines across your face.
Yeah.
But it starts with this character that everyone calls Prez. No idea what they're the Prez of. It seems cool. And she's introducing everyone to a game that they're going to be playing that day. So again, playing a game that day, I kind of wondered if this episode was an outlier and not like a sequential part of the series. And she said, everyone, we're going to be going fishing. Apparently people really like fishing around there. But what you learn very quickly is that they're actually fishing for breasts attached to women. They are fishing. They
not disembodied breasts. These are breasts attached to women.
Well, when I described it to my wife, I said, "They're fishing for breasts," and she goes, "You mean like just 2 boobs hanging out in the pool?" And I'm like, "No. I mean like they're attached to women." So, so there are these buxom women, or varying levels of bustiness.
Yes.
Who are in like a giant dunk tank. And so these fishermen attach another character to the end of a fishing line, which is a glorified rope, and throw them into the dunk tank. And it's up to this person to collect the women with the biggest bust. They're then brought ashore, much like a smallmouth bass would be. And instead of being weighed like a smallmouth bass, is they roll their breasts like a fingerprint over a piece of paper, and they measure their boobs. and just like a fishing tournament, if you've ever watched Outdoor Network, he who accumulates the most inches of bust wins the tournament that day. And at one point, they pull a girl out of the water, and the fisherman looks at her and he goes, "Not today, minnow," and throws her back in the water. So that I all kind of got, I know. But one thing I didn't get, and I'm sure is explained, is this kind of like, I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this, was half the women seem to they wear chains around their neck. And half the women didn't. I didn't really know what that was about. And then sort of at the end of the episode, one of the women with chains around their neck, she keeps calling this guy master. And she appears to be in love with him, and I think it's like his birthday or something, and she wants to get him something that will really make him happy. And in the end, she gets something that makes herself happy, a watermelon. And he is made happy by her happiness. And if that sounds confusing, it's because it is. So that's what I got out of that.
One sentence. Okay, so one sentence summary. What is Sora no Toshimono, Heaven's Lost Property, about?
Fishing for boobs. Watermelons are great.
That's gonna be the tagline of this episode. Okay, so what if I was to tell you? What if I was to tell you, Garrett, that the name Heaven's Lost Property refers to fallen angels, or what are known as battle angels? So the women with chains are former servants of the angels in heaven. Mm-hmm. And the angels in heavens are such dirtbags that they essentially dropped them into the world because they're like, oh, this is useless, this one's stupid, this one doesn't have this, and they just throw them into the world. And this one boy who just wants a peaceful, easy life, who's also a gigantic perv, finds one girl that her name is Ikaros, who ends up becoming his property. So now he owns his own battle angel. And over the course of the series, more angels come because they don't like that Ikaros has found a human, and that and they're trying to find out, and then she's got like a little history behind her. But then the guy just keeps ending up accumulating more angels. But you got the Ikaros, which is his main one. Then you got the Delta, and they're all like called Alpha, Beta, and Deltas and stuff like that. One's called Nymph, is the one with the minnow that gets thrown back. Athenia is the one that's the huge breast that they say we have a big lunker in there, and she like eats a sandwich and pops out with her humongous rack. So like you do. And so this genre is what is known as the sudden girlfriend genre, and this was pretty popular. This is one of the older animes. This was popular in the early 2010s with shows such as Chobits and Deers, of the idea of a guy who is just kind of stupid and normal and bland, and all of a sudden this random perfect woman just kind of like latches onto him and does everything he wants, and she's
so hyper-realism.
Hyper-realism. So in this case, she's a battle angel. In Chobits, she's a robot. In Deer, she's an alien. Like, it's a lot of that sudden girlfriend genre. But in this case, and they definitely tend to go less ecchi in other things. They tend to go more into the romance category. But this show is like ecchi, like square in the ecchi category. And what I find interesting about this one is the weirdness of feeling like, because in like Chobits is like, Chobits and Deers, they're like, oh, I want to please this man, this is like, these women like, they use the master a lot, and it's very kind of uncomfortable to watch at some point. But it's also like it's kind of more, it kind of leans in the harem category, but you always go for the main two in the beginning. So I would say, as a matter of point, the anime really veers from the manga at some point. So the manga's really the manga's much longer than the anime is, and this second season was like a lot of filler. So none of these episodes had anything to do with the manga content, and it's from the second season, and I think it's just like filler. So I of course you weren't going to get any of that from this episode. But I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever watched, and I felt really dirty watching it when I did see it, and I was like, who decided this was an idea?
But I have to ask you, did you know this episode exists, or did you have to seek it out using certain keywords?
Jade, fishing, boob measuring. No, I just started watching.
What I wanted.
That's what I wanted. No, I think in anything, like I got into like genre phases. So like I started getting it. I watched a lot of shonen, a lot of the action oriented stuff. Then I got more into like the seinen mystery stuff. But then like I just like my brain got overwhelmed, and so I decided to find the stupid stuff, and that's when the harem stuff got in there. So you like the Rosario vampire.
Yeah. Well, I always.
And then this one kind of came into it, and I just finished it, and then I just kept moving. It was just one of those things that I said in passing. But this episode stuck in my mind so much because I never at one point was just like I get it. Like I normally get like the culture's different. It's different from what I'm used to. But this was so absurd that I don't know like who can explain this, And so I was like, when I came up with this episode, I was like, what if I give Garrett the boob fishing episode? And that was what went through my mind. So
it was something.
It was something. So I fear that, like, much like the fairy tale episode, you didn't get a lot of information, but From 1 to 9, what would you rank in terms of gratuitousness?
Well, there was certainly a lot less moaning and orgasming than Monster House. However, the whole master, subservient, objectifying women and fishing for boobs, 8.5, because it didn't have any moans in it.
It didn't have. It didn't have clitoral references or. And
I probably wouldn't seek it out.
You would not watch Sora no Toshimono?
No, for other reasons as well, like sort of some of the interactions between the characters, like the one male character who the lead. Would you say, you almost sounded like you said Icarus, but what was her name?
Icarus. Yeah, it's
Icarus.
Like Icarus, basically. Yeah.
When she's buying a gift for that guy and he gets like embarrassed because they find a porno like behind his VCR.
Yeah.
And just the reaction and the animation behind it, it just sort of, it was just, the stylization is not something
I also want to start a campaign where I'm like sick of watching anime in which men are petting women, and this has a lot of that, like, you know, that like you have no agency, you have no nothing, and just like it gets to me on a different level than that, and like it's not like something I can really get into. So I'm with you, like I took it to its logical conclusion, and I just moved on. So that's the way I looked at it. So I'm glad you went through this experience with me, Garrett. It was fascinating to hear how a new person would look at something that spans many different genres, but it's kind of really unique to this medium. And I think uniquely, normally we do our Weeb and Noob score to talk about would you recommend it, and we've already kind of talked about it, but this Weeb and Noob score is going to be how important is this to your total repertoire? Like, can you go without this and still appreciate anime as it is? And that's like, for me, it's like as an avid watcher, what do I feel that way? And for a new person, like, don't seek any ecchi stuff out. Don't seek any, fan service stuff out. I would give this a 4 or 5. It takes a while to get used to why it's there. It gets a while to understand it for what it is. And when you see it in the breadth of what it is, then you get that it's kind of more ubiquitous than you think it is. So I would give it like a 4 or 5, just kind of be like, it's middle of the road. Like, it's there. It's going to be in everything. You might as well just get used to it and enjoy the parts you do like. And that's, what would you say? Should people avoid
if someone, you shouldn't avoid it. Yeah. But just like, I mean, look, if at the risk of speaking in platitudes and generalizations, like a 15-year-old boy is probably really going to dig this, right?
That's generally who it's geared towards.
They're looking to fill their time with I mean, go back to when we were 15 and you know, adult content wasn't widely available on the internet. But if you could get sort of like a substitute, you know, if you didn't have a box that stole HBO to watch Real Sex at 2 a.m, then maybe you would try and find this if you were in Japan, because either ecchi or hentai appeals to that without being that. You really have to know your audience. I would never, ever start someone off and say, watch this, it's cool. Well, you know.
Unless you're doing a podcast in which you just want to weird out your friend.
Right. Maybe Kill La Kill.
Kill La Kill. Okay. And I would say most people would say that too.
Right. Now if I were to rank them, I would say, for me, and to those people out there, don't be upset.
This is your ranking. This is no one else's.
Opinion.
Personal.
On these singular episodes that I was tasked with watching, Sora was 4th place.
Right.
Fairy Tail was 3rd place. 2nd place was Kill La Kill. And 1st place was Monster House.
I just love how Monster Musume is your top one, and it's the one that you like were just baffled by the most, which just kind of speaks.
Well, I think that was it, because it was truly like so different than the others. But Kill La Kill, I could actually introduce that to someone, and if they'd be like, well, a lot of weird panty shots, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, but it doesn't take away from the show.
Right, And that is for all you weebs out there. That's the way you introduce it. You say, hey, you know, I get it. It's got panty shots. I get it. It's over-sexualizing women. And for my purposes, I know that that doesn't reflect me as a person, but I still like the thing. And I still like the art. I still love the action sequences. I love the characters, all that stuff.
And let's also keep in mind with Kill La Kill, like, it's also like, in one episode, I understood it to be the two leads are strong, independent female women.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, but here's the thing, you know, as we close off another episode of the Weeb podcast, I want to hear your thoughts, you out there watching this. Is fan service something that affects you and it makes it so that you don't want to watch the anime? Is it something that you watch hidden off in your closet, or is it something you openly enjoy with Matoi on your screen printed T-shirt? Let us know in the comments below. So that's the way I like to look at it. Any closing thoughts, Garrett?
No, you've scarred me. Until next week.
Until next week, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah! Itchy baka baka! Don't touch me there! But do touch that subscribe button.
Let us know what you think in the comments below. What anime should I watch next? And maybe next time, a few less crotch shots.